Hello everyone. My husband and I have been married for 4 years and together for 6, and this is the very first huge argument we've ever had. I am a female who is 24 years old. I am currently 33 weeks pregnant with his baby, he is 31 years old. When I was 20 weeks pregnant, my doctor diagnosed me with placenta previa, which if you don't know is basically when the placenta for my baby is covering the opening in my cervix. They told me it would likely move as my baby grew, but it never did. So I am scheduled for a C-section in just 3 weeks. At 20 weeks I was put on very light restrictions, but at 30 I got put on heavier restrictions, like no running, no lifting or climbing, no standing for longer than 3 hours at a time, and most importantly no sex and no vaginal exams. Because my doctor told me that we want absolutely nothing to potentially make me bleed, which could lead to preterm birth. So I have been doing this all for 3 weeks, but it has been driving my husband fucking insane. Every single day he bothers me for sex. Every single day I tell him I can't and remind him of the restrictions. I don't even want to have sex anyway, my tummy is so big and I am always exhausted. He doesn't really like those answers. Finally he came to me and started going on about how doctors sometimes dramatize things for the sake of their careers and more money. He said they push for C-sections. I was like, okay, whatever, but I know that I have this condition, obviously I am going to follow the rules. He didn't take the answer and we ended up having sex. For a few hours after I was having really heavy bleeding and I got so scared. I was crying in the bathroom, trying to figure out what to do. I ended up calling my doctor and she told me to come in right away. The whole car ride there I was just sobbing, imagining that in an hour I would be having a C-section for an only 33-week-old baby. We quickly figured out that I am not in preterm labor, I was just bleeding, and as long as it stops it will be okay. It did and I am fine. But while I was there my doctor asked my husband to leave and started asking me questions. She asked me if I did anything I wasn't supposed to do. She was like, this isn't accusatory, it's okay, it's just better to know if it was caused by something or random. I told her that I had sex. She just went over all the things again and then gave me a bunch of information on domestic violence. She put them in my purse for me, literally. I was so embarrassed. When we got into the car I broke down and yelled at my husband, telling him to never do that to me again and telling him that my doctor knows more than him and knows what is best for me and the baby. He apologized and I could tell he really meant it. I have still been holding a grudge for days and he's been groveling for days. He asked me how long I was gonna make him apologize. I told him at least until the baby is born. Am I the asshole for that? I wasn't originally going to make an update just because like I was getting into specific detail about my life and I didn't want anyone I know in real life to find it. But I will because I don't know why actually. I guess I just got some really good comments. I posted this about 7 hours ago and I cannot believe how many people have responded. I don't know if I could ever say thank you enough to such thoughtful strangers on the internet. So originally my plan was to tell my doctor and my sister-in-law, maybe my brother, but I wasn't looking forward to discussing those details with him. I rescheduled my weekly appointment with my doctor for tomorrow. I know some people said I would be able to just walk in, but I didn't want to do it and then have make some excuse to my husband. The comments made me realize the severity of the situation and honestly I am terrified. So I called my sister-in-law when she got off work and we had a really long conversation. I mentioned in the comments, but my sister-in-law and brother have never really liked my husband, especially my sister-in-law. She was very supportive and kind and we talked for a long time. I guess I can admit now that it wasn't just sex, it was grape. We talked about that more than anything else. And she cleared the whole confusion thing up very quickly. I told her a lot of the things my mom excused because she likes my husband and my sister-in-law was livid. I guess I kinda knew she always would be, which is why I never told her. She ended up telling me to talk to my doctor and she will talk to my brother and we will see what's going on. She said she will come down on the soonest flight, but my brother cannot come yet because they do have children of their own. I was content with that though and my appointment with my doctor is tomorrow. So my husband got home kinda early and saw how I was upset. I really was planning on getting myself together before he came home, but I did not have time. Still, I was not going to tell him anything, but he was being so kind, which he really usually is. I know that's hard to believe but it's true, but today especially he was so kind and so worried about me. I know it was stupid to explain the situation, but I did. I don't know why. I'm just used to telling him my problems, I guess. It was a mistake and I know that. I am really trying not to be so stupid anymore, but it's hard to switch from thinking about him as my loving and caring husband to my husband who is hurting me. So I told him that and how he hurt me, and honestly I am scared now. He was like, what, how? I said, by forcing me to have sex, by literally forcing my legs apart and telling me to calm down. He was like, oh my fucking god, don't fucking say that. That's a crime, do you understand that? Do you understand you just accused me of Marshall Grape? And pushed me away from him. I started to apologize and he started to say it was okay and do that thing where he acts like I'm dumb again. So I finally like, yeah, actually, I really do understand that now. It isn't right and it is Marshall Grape. It resulted in a huge argument once again. He called me an idiot for even daring to say those words. I called him an abuser and he literally laughed. He was like, who are you talking to, you don't know what you're talking about, and started to go on and on about things I don't know about. He said sex with his wife isn't great, no matter how you split it. I ended up trying to just walk away, but he grabbed me by my wrist. I snatched my hand away and he held up his hands, was like, oh I'm sorry, that might be considered battery of a pregnant woman if we're going by your definitions. The condescending tone is what really drove me to the edge, and I told him I don't want to be around him. He was like, fine, I'll go. I said, no, I want to go. I want to be away from you. He threw the credit card at me and told me to go get a hotel then. So I did. And here I am, typing this now. And my sister-in-law is on her way right now, but I am so far from okay. He's called me several times, but I won't answer. I've never seen him that angry before. I am slightly concerned what he will do if I genuinely tell him I want to leave and take the baby. He is the one who wanted to have a child, and I was convinced. It won't let me take her easily, and that terrifies me. Every time my daughter kicks I just want to sob. I never thought that my own baby would make me cry like this. But I am just so scared. Story 2. My wife started going out a lot, so I hired a private investigator. What I found out changed my life forever. Not long ago, my wife and I hit the milestone of our 6th wedding anniversary, and we're lucky to have 2 fantastic boys together. These awesome kids are from my wife's previous relationship, and over time, we've really bonded as a family. Our weekends are packed with joy as we enjoy activities with the boys, like catching movies and having family dinners. Being their stepdad fills me with happiness, and we always find a way to have a blast together as a close-knit family. About a year back, we faced a bit of a rough patch when my wife went out for a night with her friends. When she returned, I sensed something was off. I asked her what was wrong, but she brushed it off, saying she was just tired from her night out. Even though I had a hunch there was more to it, I decided to give her some space and not pry. I took her word for it about being tired and didn't bring it up again. But in the days that followed, I noticed she was glued to her phone, more than usual. Even at dinner, I casually asked why she was texting so much. She mentioned she was chatting with her girlfriends about their night out and planning another get-together. While her response seemed harmless, I couldn't shake the feeling that there might be something else happening. At the time, I didn't think much of her texting her friends a lot since it seemed pretty normal. Now that I look back, I realize she might have been organizing something with them that she wanted to keep under wraps. Given her hectic job as a consultant at a large firm, I didn't mind her going out with friends to blow off some steam. It felt like a typical way for her to recharge, and I trusted her to juggle work and personal life well. My wife is super excited about another girls' night out, and this will be the second one in just a few weeks. I totally get that she wants to have fun and hang out with her friends, but there's a bit of a red flag for me. Out of her group, 4 are single, and she's the only one who's married. This whole thing makes me a bit uneasy because I feel like she has more to lose than her single friends do. I want to trust her and respect her independence, but I can't help but worry about the potential risks involved. After the second girls' night, I brought up my concerns with her in a gentle way. I emphasized how important it is to be cautious and to make sure her single friends don't unintentionally sway her thoughts about our marriage. I really believe in open communication, and I want to support her while also protecting our commitment. When I shared my worries, she looked a bit puzzled but didn't say much, almost like she was looking for some direction. Later, I decided to swing by my parents' place and chat with my mom about my wife's frequent girls' nights. I explained how all her friends are single, which makes me anxious since they don't have the same responsibilities my wife has. My mom listened and said she gets why I'm concerned about her being the only married one in a group of singles, but she doesn't think girls' nights are a bad thing. My dad added that if he were in my shoes, he'd definitely speak up and suggest setting some boundaries. My parents really emphasized the importance of being open and honest with my wife about the situation, while also respecting her need to enjoy time with her friends. They suggested I clearly express my feelings and set boundaries so we can come up with a solution that suits us both. My dad mentioned that her frequent outings without me are a significant concern. Then my mom chimed in, sharing that in their 40 years of marriage, she only went out for girls' nights 3 times. She pointed out that her friends were also married and always made it a point to be home by 11 p.m. Reflecting on what my parents said during my drive home, I realized they had a valid point. It was crucial to address this issue soon to avoid it escalating. When I got home, I brought it up with my wife, but she got upset and accused me of trying to control her and not trusting her. I tried to clarify that my intentions were rooted in concern for her safety, not control. Unfortunately, she didn't want to hear it and went to bed angry. The next day, she went out for her girls' night and didn't return even after I got back from work. I was taken aback since this was the 3rd time it happened without me knowing. She finally came home after 2 a.m. But I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I pretended to be asleep when she entered the bedroom. As I lay there, I realized I needed to understand why she prioritized her outings with friends over family time. I decided it was time for a genuine conversation to uncover what was driving her desire to leave our family for nights out with her friends. The day before heading to work, I reached out to a buddy of mine to see if he still had the contact info for the private investigator he once hired for his business. I needed some background info for my situation. My friend had brought in the investigator because one of his employees was trying to claim workman's comp after an accident. The employee claimed he was too hurt to work, which pushed my friend to act fast and hire a private investigator. It turned out the guy was faking his injuries. The investigator discovered that while he was supposedly recovering, he was actually out playing golf and flag football. With that evidence, the employee had to drop his compensation claim. After getting the investigator's contact details from my friend, I wanted to make sure everything was alright. I shared my worries about my wife's recent behavior. She had been going out for girls' nights a lot and I was concerned she might be getting into trouble. My friend asked why I doubted her loyalty. I explained that there were 3 times she came home after midnight smelling like booze. Plus, when I confronted her about it, she got really defensive, which only added to my worries. My friend replied, "Sounds like you have some solid reasons to be concerned." After that chat, I decided to call the private investigator. We arranged to meet after work. During our conversation, he asked what I needed from him. I told him I wanted him to keep an eye on my wife when she was out with her friends to see what she was up to. When we met, he mentioned his rate was $100 an hour. Honestly, I didn't care about the price, I just wanted to know what my wife was really doing. I handed the investigator a photo of her along with details about her car, job, and work hours. He told me he'd start keeping an eye on her the very next day. For 3 long days, I anxiously awaited his call, eager to know what my wife was up to. Finally, he reached out and we arranged to meet after I got off work. He had some videos to show me that revealed his findings. In the footage, I saw my wife leaving her job in a completely different outfit than what she had on that morning. It was obvious she had changed clothes at work. The investigator followed her to a bar where she met up with a group of her friends. They hung out at the bar for about 2 hours before heading out together. The investigator trailed them to a house about 15 minutes away from the bar. When they arrived, a man opened the door. My wife and her friends, all dressed in black, went inside with him. The investigator explained that wearing black helps him stay out of sight during nighttime stakeouts. He positioned himself at a window, keeping a safe distance, and peered inside. What he saw confirmed my worst fears. The girls were dancing closely with some guys, and unfortunately, my wife was right there with them. She was in a corner with a man who was getting too touchy. They were sharing a passionate kiss, and it was heartbreaking to witness. After showing me this devastating evidence, the investigator turned to me and said, "I think you have enough proof to take action now." He handed me a flash drive with the videos and mentioned he'd keep a copy for himself just in case. After our meeting, I returned home feeling completely overwhelmed. Tears streamed down my face as I struggled to accept that my wife of 9 years had been unfaithful and was still involved in it. I was really conflicted about whether to show her the videos and confront her head-on. For the time being, I chose not to share them. The next morning, I got up early and headed to work without saying a word to my wife. On my way to work, she texted me asking why I hadn't spoken to her before I left. Even though I saw her message, I didn't reply right away. Once I got to the office, I quickly called a few divorce lawyers to get some advice on how to navigate the situation and look out for myself. At the same time, I started searching for a new place to live because I realized I couldn't stay in the same house as my wife. It was hard to think about leaving our home, especially with my feelings for our boys, but I felt it was necessary given what had happened. I was completely crushed, like my whole life had turned upside down. I had no idea how to fix things anymore. Divorce felt like the only real choice. Trying to mend our broken marriage seemed futile. It was obvious she wanted the freedom of being single, and I decided to let her have it. But I needed to handle this wisely, ensuring our boys wouldn't be left alone while their mom went out with her friends. Living in Massachusetts, I knew that divorce here was a no-fault process, which should make the legal side a bit easier. At night when I got home, my wife and boys were already there. As soon as I walked in, my wife greeted me and asked about my day, and the boys cheerfully said, "Hey Dad." It was such an emotional moment and I had to fight back tears to keep it together. As the night wore on, everyone started winding down for bed. After I tucked the boys in, my wife came downstairs and suggested we watch a movie together. I turned her down, saying I just wasn't feeling it. She got it and said she'd head to bed. Once she was asleep, I took the chance to pack my stuff and get ready to leave. I waited until she was in a deep sleep before sneaking out of the house. With nowhere else to go, I headed to my parents' place. Even though it was late, my dad was genuinely concerned about me and asked if I was okay. Wanting to be upfront, I sat down with him at the dining table, feeling pretty heavy inside. I showed him the videos the private investigator had gathered and he was shocked by what he saw. His disbelief mirrored the pain I had been feeling. My mom came downstairs and I decided to share the evidence with her too. Both of my parents were left speechless, struggling to comprehend the betrayal. I found the strength to tell them I had made the decision to leave and start the divorce process. They looked sad but didn't try to change my mind. In the end, my decision was clear. My wife's infidelity had brought me to a point of no return. That night, I stayed at my parents' house, seeking some comfort. The next morning, I woke up and texted my boss to let him know I'd be in late due to personal matters. He was understanding and didn't mind at all. While I was handling work stuff, I noticed a bunch of texts from my wife, worried about where I was and why I had left the night before. Even with all the messages coming in, I chose not to respond. I was still sorting through my feelings and really needed some time to think about everything that had gone down. So, I took a big step and reached out to a divorce lawyer, starting the legal process because of her infidelity. At the same time, I made the hard decision to move out when I knew she wouldn't be around. Later, I returned to leave her a note explaining that I had initiated the divorce and included all the important details. I also mentioned that she could reach me at my parents' place if she needed anything during this crazy time. After work, I headed to my parents' house and noticed her car parked in the driveway. When I walked in, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to know why I filed for divorce, and I mustered the strength to show her the videos on my phone. As I played the evidence, I calmly explained that I didn't deserve this treatment and that her actions had completely broken the trust we had. After a long and emotional conversation, we both agreed that divorce was the best way forward. I told her I didn't want to keep the house since it was just a rental, so I suggested she could take it since she could manage the rent on her own. The divorce process went pretty smoothly and the judge gave me 30 days to collect my stuff from the house. I decided not to ask for alimony since I earned more and child support wasn't necessary since the kids were already getting it from their biological dad. 1. We were both 33 and the boys were 7 and 8. It was tough because I had really come to care for those kids, treating them like my own, even though I wasn't their biological dad. When my job offered me a position in another state, I decided to take the leap and start fresh. I changed my phone number, only giving it to my parents and a few close friends. Now, almost a year later, I've created a whole new life for myself. I'm doing great, getting back into dating, and emotionally, I feel so much better. This move has been a really positive change for me. I've heard from friends that my ex-wife has been asking about me and even tried to reach out on social media. But honestly, I'm not interested in reconnecting or revisiting the past. I'm happy with my decision to move on, and I encourage anyone in a similar situation to do the same. Sure, I still have my tough days, but I'm learning to take it one day at a time. Just tackling each challenge as it comes. Thanks for sticking around to hear my story, and if you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.